Hello, you're watching TelecomTV. My name's Martin Warwick, and I'm talking with Carl Moberg, who is the VP of Technology at TelecomTV. Now, I know you are a heavily technology-led company, and we'll get into the technology in a moment, but let's begin with where we are with open source, with SDN, etc. I'll posit this to you. In the past, manufacturers and vendors have pushed technology out to service providers. And in the past, it used to be very much a case of take it or leave it. That has changed to some extent, but that has always been the way things have been done. With SDN, we're seeing a change. The shoe is on the other foot. The service providers are leading it and saying, this is what we need and this is where we need it. Please provide it and I'll pick one I want. Yeah? Is that your experience?
I would say that there has been a rebalance. I wouldn't say that it's been a binary change, that it was one way before and that one way or other. I'd say that some of the efforts that we see, among them are the ONF, of course, and the SCI, NFV, that is kind of a counterbalance to what has traditionally been the way that we have developed standards. Now, there are many standard bodies and there are many protocols and there are many ways to go about this. But all in all, yes, the rebalancing has been very healthy. And of course, the major issue or major challenge for any useful standard-defining organization has always been service provider or any service provider participation. So anything that can attract these guys and girls out of their operational habitat and into help vendors like ourselves and like the traditional equipment providers by just explaining what it is that they're suffering from and allowing us to kind of peek into their day-to-day problems is very useful. And again, the ONF and the SCI, NFV are both good examples of how that started.
As you said, Carl, there are many standards. One wonders in the end whether or not, given that, the manufacturers will bring back under their own purview and control that which they have lost under current circumstances. Do you think that's possible?
I think we're being a little bit unfair, and I say we because I'm suffering from the same problem in being too harsh on some of the equipment providers. I think they're faithfully trying to do many things that we're laying in front of them. It's just that some of these things are inherently very tricky, very challenging, right? And it's one thing to talk about technological excellence and how good this looks on paper or in presentation. It's an entirely different game if you want to put it into a product, bring it into the market, operationalize these things. I don't think it's a secret to the industry that OpenFlow is amazing in its beauty and in its terseness, but putting that into a big, dirty, living network is something entirely different, right?
When do you think, how and when will the likes of open source, open network, open compute actually reshape the networks that we understand and see today?
I think the expectations of revolutionary change is overblown, right? Don't forget that the entire internet infrastructure and every data center network known to man is built on open standards in the data plane layer. It's just that we're attacking other angles of doing networking today, mostly towards the manageability. That arguably over time has had its problem with closed and proprietary interfaces for both technical and maybe also business reasons. So I think we'll see, with renewed interest and renewed focus in these domains, I think we'll see various takes on how to solve this using open source, open interfaces, open protocols, and open standards. And it's going to come back to the service providers, how fast they're willing to change and accept the ones that stand out as being useful and pragmatic and something that they can actually start working with. So it's right back in the hands of the service providers to take all these things that we create in these forums and in these open source projects and see if they can make something out of it.
Let's get back to what you're doing here in California at ONS 2014. I know your presentation is about building a managed security solution which is based on OpenFlow for an unnamed but large Asian operator. Tell us about that. What are you doing? Why was it required?
Well, the reason we actually wanted to share the experience of actually not only trying to, but having built an operationalized way of doing service chaining as a broad construct of driving traffic through perhaps value-added network functions, is that there are so many devils and details, throughout this landscape here, around the fact that, again, it's going to be, this is exactly what I'm going to talk about, a hodgepodge of different open and less open protocols and technologies, and tying them together in a useful fashion that can be packaged and of course hand it over to the open market, is truly at the core of what we think where we're going here, where things like OpenFlow is just an implementation detail. The way of doing service chaining in various types of vendors is an implementation detail. It's the tying together, operationalizing, and actually being able to sell, if you wish, the entire package is what's tough, what's actually really tough to do.
Okay, so tell us what the applications, the product, the services you're providing actually mean to a service provider.
Absolutely. So we go to the core of two issues that most service providers would happily tell you in the hallways out here that they have, and that companies like AT&T have been hammering on for a good while now. First of all, the ability to much faster introduce new vendors and new technologies in their running networks. We need to kind of grease the layer between the manageability, the OSS, and the provisioning systems, and the actual data plane, the stuff that forwards packets according to a particular service, right? So that's one thing that we're going right to the heart of. And the second thing is to put the ownership of the structure of the services, the way you package, you bundle and sell whatever assets your network have, into the open market, and allow people to give them much more agility in terms of what it is that they construct and sell, is the other thing. And the interesting part is that it kind of goes to two parts of the service provider organization. The first one, the kind of data plane layer thing, goes right into the heart of the operations teams that needs to take care of and carefully select the vendors. And the second part goes into the product ownership part of the service provider, perhaps the product managers that want to test new services. They want to fail early on new services, and they want to keep successful services. So it's a piece of software from our point of view that actually allows these two things to come together in a tastefully packaged fashion.
So the products and the services that you have, you talk about this one application with this Asian operator. What for TelecomTV is the next step then? Is this once only? Is what you have applicable in other circumstances? What are you doing looking forward from ONS 2014 going forward to ONS 2015?
What we're doing is that we're getting, as Swedish as I am, quite a bit of positive attraction, to put it mildly, positive attention, to put it mildly, and being invited into some of the obscenely large environments that some of the global service providers are using us for. I'll tell you that the next year I think we will be in the trenches, proving that our software can actually scale to these huge networks that they're putting us into. So hopefully we can talk in another year and I'll tell you about the vast amounts of networking equipment that's now running or being run by our software.
So that's the challenge to you, upscaling to massive networks.
Yes.
Final question to you then. With cloud, with SDN, with NFV as the basis of all of this, what do you regard as being the actual basic building blocks of network transformation? Some people have said it's actually the most difficult part is changing the culture within the service provider. Others have said it's this kind of technology. Others have said it's money. What do you reckon?
I'd like to point out two things, and in order. I do wholeheartedly agree that the culture shift is going to be immense, right? And it's almost an ironic experience. The rift between the language you get from the service providers and their expectations and what you actually get when you deliver that to them. The surprise when they actually get what they ask for. And that surprise needs to come down to that they're happy and they're delighted, instead of just surprised that, oh, it actually exists, right? That's one thing. And I think what we've seen throughout this whole journey from where, we started with SDN and OpenFlow, and everybody said that this is going to be a CapEx play. The investment volume in the forwarding plane will come down. And I can say to the customer, and we have quite a bit of them, they've all shifted their interest into the OpEx. So we think that deep automation, literally getting people out of the loop for their bread and butter services, is definitely what's going to change the game. Someone that I trust once told me that people need to realize that the network is just one of the hobbies that the billing system has, right? And it needs to stay a hobby on the side, not much more than that.
Good point. Interesting stuff. Carl Moberg, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.